Hey, Lieutenant Commander, humor me for a second. You ever see real combat? I mean the kind where you actually pull a trigger? What's your kill count? The question lands in the middle of the Navy Strategic Operations Center like a grenade with the pin already pulled. General Marcus Hale stands at the head of the conference table, arms crossed, that trademark smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. Around the U-shaped table, 15 senior officers freeze mid-conversation. Coffee cups pause halfway to lips. Folders stop rustling. It's 900 hours on a Tuesday morning. The briefing room smells like burnt coffee and the faint chemical tang of dry erase markers. Fluorescent lights hum overhead, casting everything in that sterile white glow that makes every face look a little too sharp, a little too exposed. On the wall behind Hale, a digital map displays current operational zones in 7 different colors. Red dots mark conflict areas. Blue lines trace supply routes. Green zones indicate Allied positions. Nobody's looking at the map anymore. Lieutenant Commander Ivy Calder sits at the far end of the table. She's the only woman in the room, and unlike the others in their service dress blues or combat utilities, she wears the dark Navy uniform of a civil military liaison officer. No ribbons stacked 3 rows deep, no combat action badge. Just her rank insignia and a single ribbon most people wouldn't recognize unless they knew what to look for. She doesn't move, doesn't flinch. Her hands rest flat on the table, fingers spread slightly, palms down. The posture of someone who knows exactly how to control every muscle, every micro-expression. 4 counts in. Hold. 4 counts out. Hold. The kind of breathing pattern you don't learn in basic training. Chief Petty Officer Ryan Cole sits directly across from her. 41 years old, seal trident on his chest. 17 years of trigger time in places the maps don't name anymore. He's watching her with the kind of attention most people reserve for bomb disposal. His brow furrows slightly. Not confusion, recognition. The silence stretches. 3 seconds. 4. In a room full of military leadership, 4 seconds of dead air feels like an eternity. Hale's smirk widens. Come on, Commander, it's a simple question. Every operator has a number. Or are we talking single digits here? Maybe 0? A few officers chuckle. Nervous laughter, the kind that fills uncomfortable space. Rear Admiral Noah Benton, presiding over the briefing from the center seat, glances between Hale and Calder. His jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. Ivy lifts her gaze. Her eyes are dark, calm, and completely unreadable. When she speaks, her voice carries no heat, no defensiveness, no embarrassment. I don't count the people I killed, sir. The chuckles die instantly. Hale's expression shifts, still confident, but now there's a sharper edge to it, like he's caught the scent of something he wants to chase down. Oh? He uncrosses his arms, leans forward slightly. Too many to remember? That's the usual excuse for folks who actually did the work. Ivy's hands don't move. Her posture doesn't change. But something flickers behind her eyes. Not anger, not fear. Something deeper and more carefully controlled. Because most of them didn't die by my trigger. The temperature in the room drops. Admiral Benton shifts in his chair, leaning forward now. Several officers exchange glances. Dr. Elaine Foster, the Navy physician seated near the back, goes very still. Her pen hovers over her tablet, no longer taking notes. Hale barks out a laugh. Now that's creative. Didn't die by my trigger. That's a new one. So what, you called in airstrikes? Artillery? Somebody else did the shooting for you. Ivy doesn't answer immediately. She looks past him, at the operational map on the wall. Red zones, blue lines, green safe areas. Her eyes trace a route that isn't currently displayed, following geography only she can see. The movement is subtle, but Ryan Cole catches it. He knows that look. He's seen operators do it before. Mental mapping, tactical replay. The kind of internal navigation that happens when you're reliving something you can't forget. I chose the timing, she says quietly. The route. Who got extracted? A pause, barely a heartbeat long. And who didn't? Ryan Cole's coffee cup lowers to the table with deliberate control. His knuckles are white around the ceramic. He knows that phrasing. He's heard it before. In the kind of after-action reports that never see daylight. The ones where the mission succeeded, but the cost column has names instead of numbers. Dr. Foster's hand moves to her tablet, fingers hovering over the screen but not typing. She's watching Ivy with the clinical detachment of someone who's seen this pattern before, someone who knows exactly what kind of weight those words carry. Her expression shifts fractionally, concern mixed with professional assessment. Hale straightens up, arms crossing again. His smile has teeth now. That sounds an awful lot like dodging the question, Commander. In this room, we deal in results, metrics, outcomes. If you don't have a count, you don't have a record. And if you don't have a record, he spreads his hands, then what exactly are you doing in a strategic operations briefing? Several heads turn toward Ivy. The unspoken question hangs in the air. What is she doing here? She's liaison. She coordinates with civilian agencies, with foreign military partners, with non-combatant organizations. She doesn't run operations, doesn't plan strikes, doesn't make tactical calls. Except the way she sits tells a different story. The controlled breathing tells a different story. The way Ryan Cole is staring at her like he's just recognized someone he thought was dead tells a different story. Admiral Benton clears his throat. The sound is soft, but in the silence it carries weight. What do you mean, Commander Calder? Ivy's gaze shifts from the map to Benton. For the first time since Hale asked his question, something changes in her expression. Not fear, not anger, just a kind of quiet resignation, like she's been waiting for this moment. And now that it's here, there's a strange inevitability to it. I mean that in certain operations, the person pulling the trigger isn't the one making the decision about who dies. Her voice is steady, clinical. The call sign, the coordinates, the timing window, the extraction sequence, those decisions happen upstream. And when you're upstream, she stops. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out. You carry different numbers. The room is so quiet, you can hear the ventilation system cycling. Somewhere down the hall, a phone rings twice and goes silent. On the digital map, a blue line blinks, indicating a supply convoy moving through a safe corridor. Nobody's watching it. A colonel seated near Hale shifts uncomfortably. He's been part of enough briefings to recognize when the atmosphere changes. When a conversation stops being professional sparring and starts becoming something that might leave permanent marks. If you think a kill count defines a warrior, you're about to see why silence can be deadlier than bullets. Hit that like button because this story rewrites everything you thought you knew about sacrifice. Hale isn't smiling anymore. He's studying Ivy like she's a puzzle that just revealed an unexpected piece. His eyes narrow slightly, calculating. Commander, have you ever made a tactical call under fire? Real fire, not paperwork fire. The kind where if you get it wrong, people don't go home. It's a test. Everyone in the room knows it. Hale is famous for this approach. He believes in pressure, in stress positions, in making officers prove they belong at the table. He's built a 30-year career on the philosophy that war is measured by body counts and confirmed targets, that everything else is support structure and administrative overhead. Ivy doesn't answer immediately. She looks down at her hands, still flat on the table. The position hasn't changed, but now, if you're watching closely, you can see the tendons standing out slightly on the backs of her hands. The subtle tension of someone exerting pressure against an immovable surface. A grounding technique. Dr. Foster recognizes it instantly. Ryan Cole leans toward Dr. Foster. His voice is barely a whisper, pitched so low only she can hear. She's not dodging, she's choosing. Foster gives the smallest nod. Her eyes haven't left Ivy. She taps 3 words into her tablet. Recognize the pattern. The colonel 2 chairs down from Hale tries to intervene. General, maybe we should... I'm asking a legitimate question, Hale interrupts. His voice is louder now, filling the room, establishing dominance. Commander Calder just implied she makes life and death decisions. I want to know if she has the experience to back that up. In my world, you don't get to make those calls unless you've been in the dirt, unless you've seen what happens when the decision is wrong. Ivy lifts her head, meets his eyes directly. I've seen it. How many times? Enough. That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give you, sir. Hale's jaw tightens. He's losing control of the exchange, and he knows it. Around the table, officers are starting to lean back in their chairs, creating psychological distance. The body language of people who sense incoming fire and want to be out of the blast radius. A lieutenant commander near the end of the table finds his briefing folder suddenly fascinating. Another officer adjusts his collar repeatedly, a nervous tell. Admiral Benton raises one hand slightly. The gesture is minimal, but carries authority. General Hale, I think, with respect, Admiral, I think Commander Calder needs to clarify her role here. Hale doesn't look away from Ivy. His focus is laser sharp now, the kind of intensity he's famous for in interrogations and personnel reviews. Because right now, it sounds like she's claiming authority she hasn't earned. And in a strategic operations briefing, that's not just inappropriate, it's dangerous. The word lands like a slap. Dangerous. The implication is clear. If you can't prove your credentials, you're a liability. You're putting others at risk. You don't belong in this room with these people making these decisions. Ivy's controlled breathing pattern stutters. It's subtle, maybe a half-second disruption, but it's there. Her fingers press harder against the table. The first real crack in her composure. Ryan Cole's hand moves to his own coffee cup, but he doesn't pick it up. He's watching Ivy the way you watch a structure under stress, checking for the first signs of catastrophic failure. His expression is tight, mouth pressed into a thin line. Dr. Foster taps another note into her tablet. Escalation pattern recognized. Intervention may be necessary. A surface warfare lieutenant commander speaks up, his voice careful. General, if I may, Commander Calder's file shows extensive. Her file is classified, Hale says flatly, which tells me exactly nothing about her actual operational experience. For all we know, she spent her entire career coordinating coffee schedules with embassy staff and filing reports nobody reads. A few uncomfortable shifts around the table. One officer stares very hard at his briefing folder, unwilling to meet anyone's eyes. Another suddenly finds his pen extremely interesting, clicking it repeatedly until the captain next to him puts a hand on his wrist to stop him. Ivy's jaw sets. It's the first real tell that penetrates her carefully maintained exterior. The first sign that Hale's words are landing exactly where he wants them to. I coordinated more than coffee, she says quietly. The words are precise, measured. But there's something underneath them now, something coiled and waiting. Then tell us what? Hale spreads his hands in a gesture of false openness. Enlighten us, because from where I'm sitting, you're a liaison officer with no combat badge, no deployment markers visible on that uniform, and a sealed file. That doesn't exactly scream tactical decision maker. The silence that follows is different, heavier, the kind that makes everyone hyper-aware of their own presence in the room, of the sound of their own breathing, of the way their uniform feels against their skin. Ivy looks at the map again. Her eyes track a specific region, Middle East Theater, Northern Corridor. The terrain is mountainous, the borders complicated, the operational zones overlapping in ways that require extremely careful coordination. Her gaze lingers on one particular area, where red and blue zones meet in a complex pattern that suggests historical conflict and ongoing tension. Gray Passage, she says. 2 words. Barely above a whisper. But the effect is immediate and devastating. An older officer near Hale's left, Marine Corps insignia, silver hair, the kind of ribbon stack that tells a story of 30 years in places most people can't pronounce, goes pale. Actually pale. The color drains from his face in a way that's visible even in the harsh fluorescent lighting. His hand grips the edge of the table. That operation is sealed, he says quietly. His voice has a tremor in it that wasn't there before. Hale's eyes narrow. His confidence wavers for the first time. What's Gray Passage? The older Marine officer doesn't answer. He's staring at Ivy now, and his expression has shifted from curiosity to something closer to shock, or recognition, or maybe horror. His mouth opens, closes, opens again without sound. Admiral Benton's hand moves to his own tablet. His fingers hover over the screen, then tap a search query. Gray Passage, classified operation. The result loads. The classification level alone makes him sit up straighter. He reads. His expression doesn't change much. He's too experienced for that, but his posture does. He shifts in his chair, hands folding carefully in front of him, in a way that suggests he's just realized the ground beneath this conversation is far less stable than he thought. Ryan Cole knows that look. He's seen it before on officers who just discovered they're standing in an active minefield. The careful stillness, the sudden awareness that any wrong move could detonate something catastrophic. Ivy's hands finally move. She pulls them back from the table, folds them in her lap, out of sight. The gesture of someone who doesn't trust themselves to keep their hands steady anymore. Commander, Benton says carefully, each word chosen with precision. Gray Passage was a joint task force operation, multinational, High-value target acquisition in denied territory. The file is sealed at the highest classification level. Multiple special access programs required for full disclosure. Yes, sir. How do you know that operation name? Ivy doesn't answer immediately. She's looking down at her lap now, at her folded hands that nobody can see. When she speaks, her voice is so quiet that several officers lean forward to hear. The movement is unconscious, automatic. Because I was there. The room goes electric, not loud, not chaotic, but every single person is now paying attention with the kind of focus usually reserved for incoming threats or emergency action messages. The quality of the silence changes. It becomes active, charged, dangerous. Hale recovers first, but his confidence is forced now. You were support staff, logistics, maybe intelligence coordination. That's not the same as, I was Warden 6. Ryan Cole's coffee cup hits the table hard enough that brown liquid sloshes over the rim, spreading across the surface, soaking into briefing papers. He doesn't notice. He doesn't move to clean it up. He's staring at Ivy like she just told him she's a ghost, like she just spoke the name of someone who died years ago and shouldn't be sitting in this room. The older Marine officer makes a sound low in his throat, not quite a gasp, not quite a groan, something in between, a sound of recognition and grief, and something else. His hand is still gripping the table edge, knuckles white. Dr. Foster closes her eyes briefly. When she opens them again, they're glassy. Her professional detachment has cracked. She knows what Warden 6 means. She knows because she's read the sealed psychological profiles of tactical coordinators from that operation. She's one of maybe 5 people in the Navy with clearance to access those files. Admiral Benton's fingers stop moving on his tablet. He's found something, a document, a file within a file, a classification marker that makes him very, very still. Hale looks around the room, reading the reactions, trying to understand what he's missing. The puzzle pieces aren't fitting together the way he expected. What's Warden 6? Nobody answers. The silence is different now, heavier than before, like the air before a lightning strike, like the moment before an explosion when you can feel the pressure wave building, but it hasn't hit yet. Ivy lifts her head. Her eyes are red-rimmed but dry. Warden 6 was the call sign for the senior tactical coordinator, the person responsible for extraction sequencing in Gray Passage. So you called in helicopters, Hale says, still pushing, still confident, still believing he's in control of this conversation. That's logistics. That's not combat decision-making. That's, I decided who got on those helicopters. Ivy's voice is steady, but there's something underneath it now, something that wasn't there before, something raw and barely contained. I decided the order. I decided the timing windows. I decided the sequence. And when the operational security requirement changed, she stops, 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out. But the rhythm is shakier now. I decided who stayed behind. The words fall like stones into deep water. No splash, just ripples spreading outward, touching everyone, changing everything. Ryan Cole pushes back from the table. The sound of his chair scraping against the floor is loud in the silence. He stands, walks 3 steps toward the window and stops, facing away from the room. His shoulders are tight. His hands are clenched at his sides. The older Marine officer has both hands flat on the table now, leaning forward like he needs the support to stay upright. How many? His voice cracks on the second word. Literally cracks, breaking into a higher register before he gets it under control. Ivy doesn't look at him. She's staring at her hands again, at the fingers laced together in her lap, where nobody can see them trembling. How many what, sir? How many did you leave behind? The question hangs in the air like smoke. On the digital map, a green zone blinks. Safe, secure, protected. The irony isn't lost on anyone who's paying attention. Ivy's jaw trembles. Just once. Just for a second. Then she locks it down with visible effort. The muscles in her neck stand out. The mission required radio silence to protect a larger strategic objective. Calling in extraction would have compromised 17 Allied positions and put 430 personnel at immediate risk. The call was made. The order was given. The silence was maintained. How many? The Marine officer's voice is raw now, stripped of professionalism, just pain. The operation assumes certain acceptable casualties in pursuit of the strategic objective, Ivy says. Her voice has gone flat, mechanical, the tone of someone reciting from a report rather than speaking from memory. The casualty projection was within acceptable parameters for numbers, Commander. Admiral Benton's voice is gentle but firm. Not projections, not parameters. How many people did you leave behind? Ivy's breathing is audible now. The 4-count rhythm is completely gone. She's just trying to get air in and out. Her shoulders rise and fall in an unsteady pattern. Dr. Foster half rises from her chair, one hand extended, a gesture of concern, of readiness to intervene. The room waits. 15 senior officers, 15 people who've seen combat, who've made hard calls, who've signed off on operations that resulted in casualties. All of them waiting for a number that they know, somehow, is going to change everything. Ivy's voice when it comes is barely audible, a whisper that somehow carries in the absolute silence. 43. The number sits in the air like a physical presence. 43. Not theoretical, not projected, not acceptable parameters. 43 actual people. Hale opens his mouth. His expression is shifting, confidence cracking. 43 enemy combatants? 43 under my care. Ivy's voice is still quiet, but there's steel in it now. 43 who trusted that when they called for extraction, someone would answer. 43 who held their position and waited for rescue that her voice catches. She stops, swallows hard. The room has gone completely still. Even the background sounds seem to have stopped. No ventilation hum, no distant footsteps, no phones ringing, just silence and the weight of that number. Ryan Cole turns around. There are tear tracks on his face. He doesn't bother wiping them away. He just looks at Ivy with an expression of complete understanding, of recognition, of shared burden. Dr. Foster is typing rapidly on her tablet now. Notes, observations, medical concerns, protocol recommendations. Her training kicking in even as her own eyes well up, even as her professional mask slips enough to show the human being underneath. Admiral Benton sits frozen, one hand still on his tablet where the gray passage file is displayed. The screen shows a timestamp, shows a classification level, shows a casualty count, shows mission parameters and acceptable loss projections and strategic outcome assessments. Cold data, clean numbers, nothing about the human cost. The colonel who tried to intervene earlier speaks up, his voice shaking. Commander, I need to understand. You're saying you had 43 personnel in need of extraction and you... He can't finish the sentence, can't make himself say the words. I maintained operational security as ordered, Ivy says. Her voice is still flat, still mechanical. I followed the directive from the operational commander. I preserved the larger mission. I protected 430 Allied personnel. Her voice finally breaks. I did my job. Hale's face has gone ashen. Something is clicking together in his mind. Pieces of a puzzle he didn't know existed. Commander, that operation was... He stops, swallows hard. That was 6 years ago. You were the operational commander, Ivy says quietly, not looking at him, still staring at her lap. Yes, sir. The room detonates silently. No sound, no movement, just the psychological equivalent of an explosion. Every eye swings to Hale. The general stands frozen, his face cycling through emotions too fast to track. Shock, denial, confusion, dawning understanding, horror, guilt. He stops, starts again. I gave you an order to maintain radio silence? Yes, sir. And you? His voice is hoarse now. You left 43 personnel behind because of my order? I followed the operational directive as given. Ivy's voice is so quiet now, it's almost inaudible. The mission succeeded. The strategic objective was achieved. 430 personnel were preserved. By all measurable metrics, the operation was a success. But 43 people died, the Marine officer says. His voice is hollow. Yes, sir. 43 died. Ivy finally looks up. Her eyes are red, but still dry, still maintaining that last, desperate grip on composure. 43 who called for extraction and heard nothing. 43 who held their positions waiting for rescue. 43 who trusted that someone was coming. 43 who... Her voice breaks completely. She presses both hands over her face. Her shoulders shake. Dr. Foster is out of her chair, moving toward her. "Commander, that's enough. You need to—" "No." Ivy's voice is muffled behind her hands but audible. "He asked me a question. He wanted my count. He wanted to know if I've earned my place at this table." She lowers her hands. Her face is blotchy now, eyes streaming, but her voice is steady. "Well, here it is. My count. Not enemy combatants. Not confirmed targets. 43 personnel under my coordination who died because I followed an order." Hale is standing very still. His face is gray. "Commander, I never meant for you to—" "What did you mean?" Ivy's voice rises for the first time. Not quite a shout, but close. "You gave an order to maintain radio silence. You prioritized the larger strategic objective over immediate extraction. You made the call. I executed it. They died. What part of that didn't you mean?" I thought—" Hale can't seem to complete a sentence. "The casualty projection said—" "The casualty projection was 44, Ivy says. Her voice has gone quiet again. Deadly quiet. 43 in the field, plus one tactical coordinator who was supposed to be in the kill zone. But I was 200 meters outside the perimeter when it happened, so I survived. I got to live with the decision. I got to attend every funeral. I got to look every family member in the eye and answer the questions I was allowed to answer and stay silent on everything I wasn't. I got to carry their names while you—" She stops abruptly. "While I what?" Hale's voice is hoarse. "While you moved on." Ivy's laugh is bitter, broken. "While you took credit for the mission's success, while you got promoted, while you built your career on an operation that killed 43 people, while you forgot." "I didn't forget," Hale says, but his voice lacks conviction. "You didn't remember." Ivy's eyes are locked on his now. "You didn't remember my call sign. You didn't remember that someone had to execute that silence order. You didn't remember that someone had to live with the consequence of your strategic decision. You asked me about kill counts like it was a joke, like it was a game, like numbers are just numbers and not—" Her voice breaks again. "Not people with families and futures and—" She can't continue. She's shaking now, trembling so hard it's visible from across the room. Drop a comment. Do you think she's running from the truth or protecting something bigger? Because what comes next will split this room in half. Admiral Benton stands slowly. The movement draws every eye. "Commander Calder," he says quietly, "I need to ask you something." Ivy nods without speaking. Can't speak. "Why are you still in the Navy?" The question lands like a physical blow. Ivy flinches. Actually flinches. Her whole body reacts. Hale's voice is desperate now. "If you carry that guilt, if it destroys you every single day, then why are you still here? Why not resign? Why not walk away? Why?" "Because someone has to make those calls." Ivy's voice is so quiet, everyone has to strain to hear. "Someone has to sit in that chair and decide which people die so others can live. Someone has to carry those names. Someone has to—" She stops. Her breathing is ragged, uncontrolled. "Commander," Dr. Foster says firmly, "you need to stop. Right now." "No," Ivy shakes her head. "He asked. He deserves an answer. They all do." She looks around the table, at each face, at each officer who's watching her with varying degrees of horror and sympathy and understanding. "I stay because if I leave, someone else takes the call sign. Someone else sits in that chair. Someone else has to choose. And maybe," her voice is shaking now, "maybe they won't remember. Maybe they won't carry the weight. Maybe they'll make the decision and move on and forget. And I can't." She's gasping now. "I can't let that happen. I can't let them become just numbers, just acceptable casualties, just strategic projections. They were people. They had names. They had—" Her voice cuts off completely. She's hyperventilating now, hands pressed to her chest. Dr. Foster is at her side immediately. "Commander, look at me. Look at me right now." But Ivy isn't looking at anything. She's somewhere else, somewhere in the past, somewhere where voices call for extraction and get only silence in response. Hale takes a step toward her, hand extended. "Commander, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know you were listening. If I had realized—" "Don't." Ryan Cole's voice cuts across the room like a blade. He's moved between Hale and Ivy without anyone noticing. His stance is protective, aggressive. "Don't you dare touch her." "Chief, I'm just trying to—" "Trying to what?" Cole's voice is low, dangerous. Trying to make yourself feel better? Trying to absolve yourself? You gave an order that killed 43 Marines, and you forgot about it. You forgot about her. You forgot about all of them. And now you want forgiveness? That's not... Then what is it? Cole is in Hale's face now. Because from where I'm standing, you just spent the last 20 minutes attacking a woman for not having a kill count while she's been carrying your body count for 6 years. Your strategic decision, your acceptable casualties. She's the one who paid the price. Admiral Benton's voice cuts through. Chief Cole, stand down. Cole doesn't move for a long moment. Then he steps back, but his eyes never leave Hale. Benton turns to Ivy. She's still gasping, still shaking. Dr. Foster has one hand on her shoulder, talking quietly, running through grounding exercises. 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch. Commander Calder, Benton says gently, I need you to answer one more question. Just one. Can you do that? Ivy manages a jerky nod. If you could go back to that day, if you could make that call again knowing everything you know now. He pauses. The room is utterly silent. Would you change it? The question sits in the air. Everyone waits. Even Ivy's gasping breaths quiet slightly as she processes what's being asked. Her answer, when it comes, is barely a whisper. No. Several people flinch. If I'd broken radio silence, Ivy continues, voice raw, if I'd called in extraction despite the order, 17 Allied positions would have been exposed. 430 personnel would have been at immediate risk. The casualty projection was 300 minimum. So no, I wouldn't change it. I would make the same call. I would let those 43, her voice breaks completely. I would let them die so 430 could live. And I would spend the rest of my life hating myself for it. She closes her eyes. Tears stream down her face now, unchecked. That's the job, she whispers. That's what it means. You make the call that saves the most people, even when it destroys you. You carry the names so someone else doesn't have to. You live with the nightmares so the mission can succeed. You never forget that your decisions have faces, have families, have... She can't continue. She's shaking too hard. Hale's voice is broken. Commander, if you carry that guilt, if it tears you apart every single day, why are you still standing here? Why haven't you... He stops himself. But the implication is clear. Ivy's eyes snap open. Why haven't I what, General? Broken? Given up? Eaten my service weapon? Her laugh is hollow. Because that would be easy. That would be running. And I don't get to run. Not from this. Not from them. Admiral Benton stands. Commander, I need you to understand something. Sir? What you're describing isn't strength. It's all I have. Ivy cuts him off. Her voice is raw but firm. It's the only thing that makes their deaths mean something. If I'm not here, making sure no one forgets, making sure the next tactical coordinator understands the weight, making sure the next command decision is made by someone who will remember every single name, then what was it all for? The room is silent. Ivy looks at Hale. You wanted to know my count. You wanted to know if I've earned my place at this table. You wanted proof that I understand what command means. Her voice is steady now, empty. My number is 43. Hale's face shifts. The confusion clears. Something like relief washes over his features. Finally, he says. There's triumph in his voice. Vindication. 43 confirmed. That's a respectable count, Commander. You should have just said so from the beginning instead of 43 of my Marines. The words drop into the silence like artillery shells. Each syllable lands with physical weight. The room doesn't just go quiet. It goes dead. The kind of silence that happens after an explosion, when your ears are ringing and you can't quite process what just happened, when reality takes a moment to catch up with your senses. Hale's mouth opens, closes, opens again. No sound comes out. Admiral Benton's hand freezes on his tablet, halfway through a gesture. His eyes widen fractionally, the most emotion he's shown in the entire briefing. The older Marine officer makes a sound like he's been punched. A sharp exhale. His hand flies to his chest. Ryan Cole turns completely around now, facing the room. The tear tracks on his face are visible to everyone. He doesn't wipe them, just stands there, witnessing. Dr. Foster's professional mask shatters. Her hand covers her mouth. Her eyes stream. Ivy is still shaking, still gasping for air. But her voice, when she continues, is steady, eerily steady. The steadiness of someone who's rehearsed these words in their head 10,000 times, who's lived this moment over and over in nightmares and therapy sessions and 3 a.m. panic attacks. Operation Gray Passage. Each word is careful, precise. I was ordered to maintain radio silence to preserve a larger strategic objective. 17 Allied positions. 430 personnel at risk if we broke cover. The mission parameters were clear. The stakes were understood. The order was given. She stops, breathes. It's not the controlled 4 count anymore, just ragged attempts to get oxygen. 43 Marines trapped behind enemy lines. They called for extraction. They held their positions. They waited for rescue. Her voice drops to barely above a whisper. I heard every transmission, every request, every... She can't finish. The silence is absolute. Even the ventilation system seems to have stopped. On the digital map, zones blink and update, completely unaware of the devastation happening in this room. A captain near the end of the table, young, maybe 30, speaks up. His voice shakes. You heard them calling for help and you didn't respond? I followed orders, Ivy says flatly. But they were Marines, our people. I could have broken radio silence, Ivy cuts him off. Her voice is stronger now, harder. I could have called in extraction. I could have saved 43 lives. And in doing so, I would have exposed 17 Allied positions. 430 personnel would have been compromised. The enemy would have adjusted their operations. The casualty projection was 300 minimum. 300 deaths to save 43. She looks directly at the captain. Do that math for me, Captain. Tell me which number is smaller. Tell me which choice you would have made. The captain goes pale, says nothing. Admiral Benton's voice is hoarse. Commander, who gave you the order to maintain radio silence? Ivy doesn't look at Hale, keeps her eyes on the table. The operational commander. Chain of command was clear. The directive was specific. Preserve mission integrity. Maintain operational security. Accept tactical losses in pursuit of strategic gains. Commander, Benton's voice is firmer now. Who gave you that order? Still, Ivy doesn't look at Hale. Does it matter, sir? Yes. Why? Ivy's voice is quiet but sharp. Does knowing who gave the order change the outcome? Does it bring anyone back? Does it make the decision less correct from a strategic standpoint? It establishes accountability, Benton says. Accountability. Ivy's laugh is bitter. Accountability for what? For making the tactically sound decision? For prioritizing the larger mission? For accepting necessary casualties in pursuit of strategic objectives. That's not a crime, Admiral. That's command. She finally looks up, finally meets Benton's eyes. The order came from then Colonel Marcus Hale, now General Hale, the man who just asked me about my kill count. Every eye in the room swings to Hale like synchronized machinery. 15 pairs of eyes, 15 expressions, ranging from shock to horror to disgust. Hale's face has gone from gray to white, actually white. His hands tremble. You're saying I ordered you to... You ordered me to maintain radio silence regardless of extraction requests, Ivy says. Her voice is clinical now, detached, like she's reading from a report. You emphasized mission integrity. You stated that tactical losses were acceptable within projected parameters. You prioritized strategic asset preservation over immediate personnel recovery. That's... Hale stops, swallows. That's standard operational protocol for high-value target operations in denied territory. Yes, sir, it is. Then why... He gestures helplessly. Why are you making it sound like... Like what, General? Ivy's voice cuts like a blade. Like you did something wrong? You didn't. By every metric that matters in military operations, you made the correct call. The mission succeeded. The high-value target was eliminated. Allied positions were preserved. 430 personnel continued their operations without compromise. The strategic objective was achieved with acceptable losses. Then why do you sound like you hate me? The words burst out of Hale. Raw, unfiltered. Because you forgot. Ivy's voice drops to barely audible. You made the decision and moved on. You took credit for mission success. You got promoted to general. You built your career on operations like Gray Passage. And you forgot. You forgot that someone had to execute that silence order. You forgot that someone had to hear those 43 voices and not respond. You forgot that someone had to live with your strategic decision. She stands. Her legs are unsteady, but she's standing. Dr. Foster reaches for her, but Ivy waves her off. You forgot that acceptable casualties have names. Ivy's voice is rising now. You forgot that tactical losses have families. You forgot that strategic gains come with human costs that don't show up in after-action reports. You forgot... Her voice breaks. You forgot all of them, every single one. While She can't continue, presses both hands to her face, shoulders shaking. Admiral Benton's fingers are flying over his tablet now, pulling up files, cross-referencing. His face is grim. Commander, I'm looking at the Gray Passage file right now. Classification level is... He stops, reads. This requires special access programs, multiple clearances. How are you? I was Warden 6, Ivy says through her hands. I have permanent access to all operational files related to that call sign. The casualty report lists 44 KIA, Benton reads. His voice is careful. 43 in the field, plus 1 tactical coordinator designated Warden 6. But you're... I survived, Ivy lowers her hands. Her face is blotchy, wet, but her voice is steady. The kill zone calculation was off by 200 meters. I was outside the blast radius, so I got to live. I got to carry the guilt. I got to spend the next 6 years attending funerals and answering questions, and lying awake hearing voices that went silent. Benton scrolls through the file. The timestamp shows the radio silence order was given at 0417 Zulu time. Signed by... He stops, looks up at Hale. Signed by then Colonel Marcus Hale, operational commander. The colonel who tried to intervene earlier speaks up. His voice is shaking with suppressed rage. General Hale, is this true? Did you give an order that resulted in 43 Marine casualties? It was a strategic decision, Hale says, but his voice lacks conviction, lacks authority. He sounds defensive, scared. The mission required. Did you attend the funerals? Ryan Cole's voice cuts across. He's moved closer to the table. His stance is aggressive, confrontational. What? The funerals. Did you attend any of them? Hale's mouth works. The operational tempo didn't allow for... That's a no. Cole's voice is flat. Did you speak with the families? Chief, I don't see what... Did you speak with the families? Cole repeats, louder. Some of them. I sent letters. Standard. Commander Calder attended all 43 funerals. Cole's voice is rising now. Every single one. Across 8 months, she spoke with every family. She answered every question she was allowed to answer. She carried your decision while you moved on. I didn't move on, I just... Hale stops, looks around the room, sees no sympathy, no understanding, just condemnation. I made a command decision. That's what commanders do. You make the hard call and you live with it and you remember, the older Marine officer says. His voice is rough, raw. You remember every name, every face. You carry the weight. You don't forget. I didn't forget, Hale says desperately. You didn't remember, Ivy says quietly. You didn't remember my call sign. You didn't remember that Warden 6 executed your silence order. You didn't remember that someone had to live with the consequence. You asked me about kill counts like it was a joke. Like numbers are just numbers. Like... Her voice breaks again. She sits down hard, like her legs just gave out. Dr. Foster is at her side immediately. Commander, that's enough. You need to stop. No. Ivy's voice is muffled but firm. He asked me a question. I'm answering it. Admiral Benton stands. The movement is slow, deliberate. When he speaks, his voice fills the room with authority. General Hale, you are suspended from this briefing effective immediately. You will report to my office at 1300 hours. We will discuss your continued participation in strategic operations and your fitness for command. Hale's face goes white. Admiral, you can't. I can, and I am. Benton's voice is cold. Your question about kill counts demonstrates a fundamental failure to understand what command actually means. Until you comprehend that leadership isn't measured in body counts, but in the weight you carry after the mission ends, you're a liability in strategic planning. Sir, with respect. There is no respect here, General. Benton's eyes are hard. You made a tactical decision 6 years ago. The mission succeeded. You took credit, you got promoted, and you forgot the human cost. You forgot the person who had to execute your order. You forgot 43 names. Commander Calder remembered. She's been carrying your burden along with her own for 6 years. That ends today. Hale opens his mouth, closes it, looks around the room for support, finds none. Every face is either avoiding his gaze or staring at him with undisguised contempt. He turns and walks out. The door closes behind him with a soft click that somehow sounds like a gavel falling. The room sits in stunned silence for 10 seconds, 20, 30. Finally, Admiral Benton speaks. "Commander Calder, I need you to tell me something." Ivy doesn't look up, just nods. "Why did you stay quiet for 6 years? Why didn't you report this? Why didn't you seek accountability?" Ivy's laugh is hollow. "Accountability for what, sir?" He made the correct decision. By every measurable standard, Gray Passage was a success. The mission parameters were achieved. The strategic objectives were met. The casualty rate was within acceptable projections. "Acceptable," Benton repeats slowly. "Yes, sir. Acceptable. 43 deaths to save 430 lives. The math is clear. The decision was sound. There's nothing to report, nothing to hold accountable. He did his job. I did mine. People died. That's war." "That's not—" Benton stops, chooses his words carefully. "Commander, you've been carrying severe psychological trauma for 6 years. You've been suffering alone. Why didn't you seek help? Why didn't you speak up?" "Because someone has to remember." Ivy's voice is quiet but intense. "Someone has to carry their names. Someone has to make sure they don't become just numbers in an after-action report. Someone has to—" She stops, breathes. "If I speak up, if I make noise, if I turn this into a scandal, what happens?" She looks around the room. Congressional hearings, investigations, media coverage, 43 families demanding answers, demanding to know why their sons and husbands and fathers were left behind. They'll tear the Navy apart. They'll sue. They'll destroy careers. Good officers who had nothing to do with Gray Passage will be caught in the crossfire. The system will break under the weight of public outrage. "So you stayed silent to protect the system," Benton says. "I stayed silent to protect the families." Ivy's voice cracks. "They don't need to know the details. They don't need to understand that their loved ones were acceptable casualties in a larger strategic game. They don't need to live with the knowledge that someone chose to let them die. They deserve to believe their Marines died heroically, fighting, not waiting for rescue that was never coming." The room is silent. "And," Ivy continues, voice dropping to a whisper, "I stayed because someone has to make the next call. Someone has to be Warden 7 or Warden 8 or whatever call sign they assign. Someone has to sit in that chair and make impossible choices. And I need that person to be someone who will remember, who will carry the weight, who won't forget the way General Hale forgot." Ryan Cole's voice is gentle. "You're punishing yourself." "I'm honoring them," Ivy says. "It's the same thing." "Maybe." Ivy's hands clench in her lap. "But it's all I have. If I'm not here, making sure no one forgets, making sure the next tactical coordinator understands the cost, making sure decisions are made by people who will remember every name, then what was it all for? What did they die for?" Share this with someone who needs to hear that real strength isn't loud. It's carrying the weight so others don't have to. And hit subscribe, because Ivy's story isn't over. Dr. Foster speaks up. "Commander, what you're describing is called moral injury. It's a recognized psychological condition. You've been living with untreated trauma for 6 years. That's not strength. That's necessary," Ivy interrupts. "It's necessary, because if I heal, if I let go, if I move on, then they're just casualties. Just acceptable losses, just—" Her voice breaks completely. The older Marine officer stands. His movement is stiff, painful, like every joint protests. He walks around the table until he's standing in front of Ivy. She doesn't look up. "Commander," he says quietly, "I was at Gray Passage, different unit, different objective. But I heard the call go out. I heard the extraction requests. I heard the silence after." He pauses. "I thought Warden 6 was dead. The casualty report said 44. I've spent 6 years believing that the tactical coordinator died with her people." Ivy looks up at him. Her face is ravaged. "I should have." "No." His voice is firm. You survived so someone could remember, so someone could carry the names, so someone could make sure it meant something. He reaches out slowly, gives her time to refuse, then puts a hand on her shoulder. Thank you for remembering them. Thank you for carrying them. Thank you for making sure they weren't just numbers. Ivy's face crumples. She covers it with both hands. Sobs shake her shoulders. The Marine officer looks at Admiral Benton. Sir, I request permission to share something from my own operational history. Benton nods. I made a similar call in Fallujah. Different circumstances. But I chose the mission over immediate rescue. 7 Marines died. I got promoted. I moved on. His voice cracks. And I forgot their names. Not all at once, but over time, the memories faded. Until one day I realized I couldn't remember all 7 faces anymore. Just 3. Then 2. He stops. Commander Calder has carried 43 names for 6 years and hasn't forgotten a single one. That's not weakness. That's devotion. That's what command actually looks like when you strip away the ribbons and the rank. Admiral Benton stands. Everyone in this room, on your feet. Chairs scrape. Officers rise. We're not standing at attention, Benton says. We're standing in recognition of what Commander Calder has carried, for the names she's remembered, for the 43 Marines who died under her coordination, and for the officer who refused to let them become statistics. Ivy keeps her face covered. Dr. Foster's hand is on her shoulder now. Ryan Cole speaks up. Admiral, I'd like to add something. Go ahead, Chief. I've worked with tactical coordinators across 3 theaters. Most break within 2 years. They transfer out. The ones who stay learn to compartmentalize, to separate the mission from the cost. He looks at Ivy. Commander Calder never learned that. She kept it personal, carried every name. That's not trauma. That's commitment at a level most of us will never understand. The colonel adds, with respect, Admiral, I think we need to understand why Commander Calder chose to remain silent, why she's carried it alone. Benton looks at Ivy. Commander, can you answer that? Ivy lowers her hands slowly. I stayed silent because speaking up would have accomplished nothing except causing pain. General Hale made the correct decision. The mission succeeded. By every military standard, Gray Passage was a success story. Then why does it feel like failure? The colonel asks quietly. Because we measure success by objectives achieved. We don't measure the cost to the person who has to execute the hard call. We don't account for moral injury in our operational projections. Ivy stands. If I speak up, if I make this a scandal, what changes? But we don't change the fundamental reality that sometimes tactical coordinators have to make calls that will haunt them forever. Sometimes the mission requires sacrifices that the people executing the order will carry for the rest of their lives. So you stayed quiet, Benton says. I stayed quiet so the system wouldn't break under public scrutiny. I stayed quiet so 43 families wouldn't have to understand that their loved ones were acceptable casualties. And I stayed so I could be here, making sure the next Warden 6 isn't alone, making sure no one else has to carry this weight without help. But you didn't have to suffer alone, Dr. Foster says. You could have sought treatment, therapy, support. I did, Ivy says quietly. I've been in therapy since 2 months after Gray Passage, twice a week for 6 years. I have a psychiatrist, medication for sleep, a support network. I'm not untreated, doctor. I'm just broken in ways that don't heal completely. Foster's expression shifts. You're in treatment? Have been since the beginning. You can pull my medical file. It's all documented. Ivy's voice is flat. I'm not suffering in silence because I don't know better. I'm suffering because some wounds don't close, some weights don't get lighter, some names don't fade. Admiral Benton sits down. Commander, I need to know something. If General Hale hadn't asked that question today, would you have ever spoken up? Ivy considers this. Eventually, maybe. When I found someone who could carry it better. When I was sure the system had safeguards in place. She pauses. Or when I couldn't carry it anymore and it killed me. Suicide? Benton's voice is sharp. Not actively, but passively, yes. There are days when I think about how much easier it would be to stop. Ivy's voice is calm. But I don't act on it because that would be abandoning them. That would be making their deaths meaningless. So I keep showing up, keep carrying the weight. Dr. Foster is typing rapidly. Commander, that level of passive suicidal ideation requires intervention. You're recommending the same thing my therapist recommends every week, Ivy says. medication adjustment, increased session frequency, possibly inpatient treatment. I know the protocol, doctor. I've been living it for 6 years. Then why are you still? Foster stops. You don't want to heal. I can't afford to heal. Ivy's voice is intense. If the guilt lessens, if the names start to fade, then what's keeping me accountable? What's preventing me from becoming like General Hale? So you hold on to the pain, Foster says. I hold on to the responsibility. Ryan Cole speaks up again. Commander, holding on to guilt doesn't honor the dead. Living well honors them. Continuing to serve effectively honors them. Making sure their sacrifice leads to better outcomes honors them. Destroying yourself doesn't honor anyone. I'm not destroying myself, Ivy protests. Yes, you are. Cole's voice is gentle but firm. You're punishing yourself every day for a decision you made under orders. A decision that saved 430 lives. You're treating yourself like a criminal when you're actually a hero. I'm not a hero. Ivy's voice is sharp. Heroes save people. I let 43 people die. You saved 430 people, the older Marine officer says. That's the definition of heroism. Making the impossible choice. Living with the burden so others don't have to. They wouldn't see it that way. Ivy's voice drops. The 43 families. If they knew the full story, they would hate me. Some of them already do. The ones who figured out I was Warden 6. The ones who tracked me down. She stops, closes her eyes. They what? Benton asks quietly. Letters, emails, phone calls. 3 families found my personal contact information. They wanted to know why their Marines were left behind. Ivy's voice cracks. They wanted someone to blame. I was the voice on the radio, the one who didn't answer their calls. What did you tell them? Foster asks. The truth, as much as I was allowed to share, that their Marines died in service to a larger mission, that the decision was made at command level, that their sacrifice saved hundreds of other lives. Ivy opens her eyes. Some accepted it, some didn't. One mother told me she hoped I would burn in hell, that her son called for help and I ignored him. The room flinches collectively. And you know what the worst part is? Ivy's laugh is bitter. She's right. I did kill him. Not directly, but my execution of General Hale's order resulted in his death. I chose the mission over his life. You chose to follow orders, Admiral Benton interrupts. You chose to execute the directive given by your commanding officer. That's not murder, Commander. That's discipline. Discipline that killed 43 people. Discipline that saved 430, Benton counters. Commander, command decisions have costs, always. But the alternative, refusing to make hard calls, prioritizing immediate rescue over strategic objectives, that alternative gets more people killed. He pauses. You made the right call. By every military standard, by every tactical assessment, you made the right call. The fact that it destroyed you doesn't make it wrong. It makes it tragic, but not wrong. Ivy is silent. Then, if it was the right call, why does it feel like the worst thing I've ever done? Because you're human, the older Marine says. Because you have a conscience. Because you understand that numbers are people and casualties are families. That's not weakness. That's what makes you qualified to keep making those calls. Admiral Benton nods. Commander Calder, effective immediately, Operation Grey Passage is being unsealed for internal ethics review. A board will be convened to examine the decision-making process, the command structure, and the long-term impact on personnel involved. This should have happened 6 years ago. Ivy's head snaps up. Sir, if you unseal that file, the families will be notified. They'll have access to the full operational report, within classification limits. They'll understand the context, the stakes, and they'll know that you've been carrying their grief along with your own for 6 years. They'll blame me. Some might understand. Some might thank you for remembering. Benton's voice is firm. But the truth needs to come out. For internal accountability, for institutional learning, for making sure the next tactical coordinator has support systems that you didn't have. What kind of support systems? Foster asks. Mandatory psychological screening before and after high-stress coordination roles. Peer support networks specifically for tactical coordinators. And most importantly, Benton looks at Ivy. Formal recognition that moral injury is a service-connected condition that deserves the same support as physical injuries. He continues, We're also establishing a moral injury review board. Any officer who makes a decision under orders that results in significant casualties can request a confidential review, not for punishment, but for support, for validation, for making sure they don't carry the weight alone. You want me to serve on that board, Ivy says. I want you to lead it, Benton says. You've lived this. You understand the weight. You're the most qualified person in the Navy to build a system that prevents other officers from suffering the way you have. Ivy is silent. You don't have to decide now, Benton adds. Take time. But I want you to know that your experience can lead to something meaningful, can change how we handle these situations, can make sure the next Warden 6 isn't alone. What if I'm too broken to? You're not broken, Ryan Cole says firmly. You're carrying a burden that would crush most people. You're standing when others would have collapsed. You're remembering when others would have forgotten. That's not broken. That's extraordinary. The room murmurs agreement. The colonel stands. Then another. Then the whole room is standing again in solidarity. Admiral Benton speaks quietly. Commander Calder, the Navy doesn't need people who count bodies. We have computers for that. What we need are people who carry the weight, who understand that every number is a name, who make the hard call and then live with the consequences, who remember. He pauses. You're here because you're exactly the kind of officer we need making these decisions. Not because you're good at them, not because they come easy, but because they destroy you, because you carry every single name, because you understand the cost in a way that metrics never will. Ivy's face crumples, but she doesn't look away, just lets the tears fall while maintaining eye contact with Benton. Thank you, sir, she manages. Don't thank me, Benton says. This should have happened 6 years ago. The system failed you. We failed you. General Hale failed you. And I'm sorry. That apology doesn't change anything. But I want you to know, you were never alone in this. You just thought you were. All right, Benton says. We're done here. Commander Calder, you have 48 hours of medical leave starting now. That's an order. Dr. Foster will coordinate your care. Chief Cole, you'll check in on her every 4 hours. The rest of you, he looks around the table. What happened in this room stays in this room until the ethics review is complete. Understood? A chorus of yes, sir. Dismissed. Officers file out slowly. Several pause by Ivy's chair. The older Marine squeezes her shoulder. The colonel nods respectfully. Even the young captain stops and says, "Thank you for your service, ma'am." Finally, only Benton, Ivy, Foster, and Cole remain. Benton sits across from Ivy. "Commander, off the record, how are you really doing?" Ivy considers the question. "Honestly, sir, I don't know. For 6 years I've been carrying this alone. And now everyone knows. The weight is..." She stops. "I don't know if it's lighter or heavier, just different. That's honest," Benton says. "Take your 48 hours, rest, and then we'll talk about next steps." Ivy nods, stands. "I should go." "We're coming with you," Foster says. They walk out together. Ivy stops in the hallway, tilts her face toward the light. "I forgot what this feels like," she says quietly. "What?" Cole asks. "Not carrying it alone." 3 weeks later, Ivy sits in her office. On the wall, a memorial board. 43 photographs arranged in precise rows. Each photo has a name beneath it. Rank, unit, date of death. And below that, in Ivy's handwriting, "I remember." The Gray Passage Ethics Review concluded yesterday. Findings: tactically sound, but procedurally flawed. Recommendation: improved support systems. No criminal charges, just institutional learning. General Hale retired quietly. Medical separation. Ivy heard he's moving to Montana. She hopes he finds peace. The Moral Injury Review Board was established last week. Ivy agreed to serve as senior advisor. 17 of the 43 families reached out, some angry, some seeking understanding. Ivy has spoken with all of them. It's excruciating. It's necessary. It's healing in ways she didn't expect. Her therapist says she's making progress. The nightmares are less frequent. She's sleeping better. Not well, but better. The weight is still there. Will always be there. But it's different now. Shared. Her computer chimes. Email notification. Subject line: Tower 4 sends regards. Ivy goes very still. The sender is heavily encrypted. Military routing protocols. The body contains 2 lines. The 44th is still out there. Coordinates attached. Your call, Warden 6. She opens the attachment. Satellite coordinates. A location deep in hostile territory, red zone, and a photograph, grainy, a figure in outdated tactical gear, face obscured but the stance is familiar. Beneath the photo, alive. Ivy's breath catches. She knows that stance, that posture. Lance Corporal Derek Reeves, listed as KIA at Gray Passage, body never recovered. The casualty report said 44, 43 in the field plus Warden 6, but she survived, which means... She picks up her phone, dials Admiral Benton's direct line. Admiral, it's Commander Calder. I just received intelligence suggesting one of the Gray Passage casualties may still be alive. Silence. Then, come to my office, now. Bring everything you have. Ivy stands, looks at the 43 photographs. Her eyes linger on the empty space at the end of the bottom row. The space that remained empty because she survived. Maybe that space was never meant for her. Maybe it was always meant for Derek Reeves. She grabs her cover, heads for the door. I'm coming for you, she whispers. I couldn't save you then, but if you're alive, if there's any chance. She walks out. The computer screen glows. The photograph, the coordinates, the word, alive. And beneath it, a message that wasn't visible in the first scroll. 6 years is a long time to wait for extraction, but some of us remember the mission. Some of us kept the faith. Some of us knew Warden 6 wouldn't forget. Tower 4 sends regards. We're ready when you are. Justice isn't loud, it's patient. And tonight, it rests. Tomorrow, they hunt.
She was quiet. They looked at her. But she was the strongest person in the room. This is why we never judge people too far. Restraint is quiet. Subscribe for more stories like this. Comment your thoughts below and share it with a veteran you know. Stay strong. See you soon in the next story.